Alright YouTube, I'm just editing right now. I want to explain what this long video is about so you don't get bored trying to figure it out. First of all, I talk about my experience with getting off of Suboxone, which was the last of many drugs that I was addicted to, how I did it, and then alternative methods besides going through rehab and the 12-step program. So I talk about Iboga, or Ibogaine is what they call it, Ibogaine treatment, so go ahead and look that up. Also, Kambo, Kambo, is another alternative that I've come up with. So I talk about those two things, and then about how Bill W., who started the Alcoholic Anonymous program, suggested spirituality through the means of hallucination, using mushrooms or acid, as his very first suggestion and his most promising way of getting people off of whatever they were addicted to. So yeah, that's what the video is about. Go ahead and watch it. Thank you. Alright YouTube, so I want to talk about now how I got off of drugs myself. I'll explain the last drug that I was using was Suboxone, and I was on that for probably 3 years. Maybe, yeah, 2 or 3 years. Now, it's not easy, and I'm going to talk about other alternatives as well. Mine is just unrealistic for most people. But for myself, I went through the whole rehab and everything. If you're watching this video, you're probably aware of how it works. Go through rehab. Most people fail 50 times. Keep going in and out. But so for myself, though, they explain in rehab that you need a spiritual connection, and they tell you to, get a closeness with God. Now, most people don't understand what that means, and I didn't either. And they say dumb shit in rehab too, like your God could even be a doorknob. That doesn't make sense. That's not an actual spiritual connection. That's looking for something outside yourself to be your connection, when really a spiritual connection is within. It's a connection to your spirit. That's true spirituality. So, right, I had been through, back and forth for a while now, but what I did, I went on this, spiritual journey of sorts, this awakening, you could call it. And I came to a point where I was using Suboxone. I was using very small doses, probably 1 milligram. But I couldn't. I was afraid to try to kick it. Because I'd heard the horror stories and I had been through them all. But I knew I needed to stop. And this spiritual connection, though, is what helped me. But anyways, I moved out here to Hawaii. I just kind of made the choice. I had a plan. I didn't really know where I was going to live. Luckily I found a place 3 days before my flight. I was ready to pitch a tent and just live on the beach if I had to. I had to get the fuck out of the area I was living in, though. So I came here with my prescription, though, and when it ran out, I just decided I was not. Actually, I didn't decide that. It's funny how synchronicity works, but it was decided for me. So I ran out, though, and I tried to call a buddy from back home. I sent him some money to send me a few more. And drug addicts, he just kept the money and ran. So I was kind of forced into it. The first and second day I was upset, I was angry, I was feeling bad, I felt like shit. And then I just kind of decided, I was like, damn, it's crazy how this worked out, because then I had sent him the last of my money. The way I'm self-employed, and my business that week, the week prior, had gone to shit for whatever reason. Synchronicity, you could call it. So I had no money, so even if I wanted to try to find something to, feel better, I couldn't. So I was kind of forced through it, so I was like, alright, I'm going to do this, I'm going to quit. And yeah, it worked out for me, but that's not realistic for most people. So, rehab aside, I don't think that rehab is really a good option for most people unless they're truly ready to get off and they have the spiritual connection already. Now that can be had through religion, but not usually. it's got to be something. You have to know that this is coming from within, and you don't really find that in religion. So, a few alternatives though that I researched. First, let me talk about getting off Suboxone, because most people are terrified, as I was, because they've read all the stories. It really was not that bad whatsoever. The first 2 days sucked because, I wasn't ready to quit. I didn't want to, so I had that anxiety, working up all my withdrawal issues. But as soon as I said, you know what, I am done, the symptoms pretty much went away. I went to Walgreens. I got some Imodium, which are they are non-narcotic opioids, I guess. So they do help with any withdrawal symptoms you might be having. So I went there, got some Imodium, and I was fine. It lasted. I was real sweaty and everything for about 2 weeks, but I felt fine. The anxiety wasn't there. It really was not that bad, as long as you're ready to quit and there is no, there's no temptation in there, access to the drugs to, bring you back, because that will kick up the anxiety every time and you'll have horrible withdrawal symptoms, because they're mostly mental. They say that opioids and opiates are physical, which they are. But if you've seen anybody going through crack withdrawal or cocaine or meth, it's the same thing. It's just the anxiety that pulls up all these withdrawal symptoms. But anyways, so I'll move on to alternative methods. Now, I did a lot of research on this because I just love to do research. I never tried these things, but I've read experience reports, and this first one is amazing. It's called Iboga. Now, if you want to look it up for recovery purposes, look up Ibogaine treatment. That's Ibogaine. So basically, Iboga is a hallucinogen. I know, treat drugs with drugs, but that's a stupid way of thinking about it. Iboga is a deeply, deeply spiritual thing. It's about a 24-hour process. The hallucination part lasts for about 8 hours, I hear. And then the rest of it is just kind of recovering from it. But you can't really sleep for whatever reason. It's been explained that while you're going through the 8 hours, it is similar on the brain or the body to sleeping. So when you come out of it, your brain, I guess, is well rested. Your body is tired, but you can't fall asleep. It's just part of the process, apparently. But we know that with rehab, with treatment centers, I'm not sure what the exact number is, but we know how bad it is. Recovery is usually less than 10% success rate. Now with Iboga, I've heard numbers up over 70 or 80%. And the others are just, people that they felt like shit after the trip and they couldn't go to sleep, so they immediately, like we all do when we get sick or we get the flu or something, we immediately think, oh shit, withdrawal, even if it's not. So I'm guessing those people, they just felt like shit and they said, no, I need to, go get whatever. But it's explained that there's like a spirit to the trip too, and you'll like see this, this manifestation of, your spirit guide, you can call it. It'll present itself to you and it'll enter the body, and it's like it's physically removing the addiction from you, the addictive mentality. So afterwards, you really don't even feel like a drug addict. You don't have that craving or the urge. Now, if you want to go do drugs, though, you're going to go do drugs. You have free will, but you won't feel like you need to. And apparently, people if they're a really bad addict or something, they'll redose 3 months later or so. So this effect of the non-addictive brain will last for 3 months, which at that point you should be able to handle it on your own afterwards. But a lot of people, for safety, they redo this 3 months later, and then they're fine for life. So yeah, that's Iboga. It's illegal in the United States, of course, because We know how shit works with the pharmaceutical companies in the United States. You know, it's just all a money-making enterprise. But you can go to Mexico, you can go to Canada, you can go basically anywhere besides the United States and do it. And I think it's around maybe 10. I've heard anywhere from $6,000 to $15,000 to go to an actual treatment center with a doctor who's going to, you know, watch you, administer the right amount to you and everything, and you know, you'll be fine afterwards. Now, if you're self-paying for some kind of shitty state rehab, you're going to pay a similar amount anyways. So you might as well go somewhere that's going to fucking work. So that's number one. And there's another thing that I've heard about. It's called Kambo, Kambo. It's they've used it for a long fucking time in like the Amazon area, Central and Southern America. And it's hard to explain, but it's another deeply spiritual process, and we keep coming back to these spiritual things because a connection to spirit is what you need, and these two are like a jump start for your connection, for your spirituality. They're basically like, you know, putting the jumpers on and fucking getting the juice flowing. They open you up, and you have clarity of mind that you've never experienced before after these things, you know, after these processes. Kambo, though, I haven't seen it referred to specifically for drug addiction, but if you have some money or you have a family member that you really want to help out, I would definitely, I'm sorry, I keep burping, I would definitely consider mixing the two of these together. Not at the same time, obviously, but, you know, in the same span of time. You don't need to, though. The Iboga seems to be fantastic. But the Kambo, what it does, it's like the venom or poison or something of this tree frog. It's not the stuff that you lick and get high off of. It's like the venom from this tree frog. They scrape it off. And you'll do it with like a shaman or something, or a practitioner. And they'll burn these little, just barely, these little holes on different parts of your body wherever you have problems or whatever, and they'll use this little stick to, you know, just put the venom into this, you know, new wound, so it'll be soaked up in your body. It's not something terrible. It's not like they fucking brand you or anything. It's just a very small little, I think they just use a stick, a heated up, you know, they have a burned end of a stick that they hit you with. I hear it's not really painful. And this one's not 24 hours or anything. It lasts about 45 minutes. And it's also not a hallucinogen. You'll puke, you'll purge. They explain it as you're like puking out all the shit of your life, basically. But when you come out of it, you have more mental clarity than you'll ever experience in your life. I would suggest for anybody to do this, not addiction related whatsoever, but we're so fucking lost right now in our heads and you know, caught up in the bullshit of life that you know, we don't have that clarity whatsoever. And with all the garbage food that we eat, you know, all the processed food attacks the brain anyways. So that's the reason you always feel so fuzzy and you just don't really know what you feel like or what you want or what you want to do or anything like that. So the Kambo, though, they'll help you. It's, like I said, a jump start to spirituality. So those are two other options. Now the Iboga, that's a for sure thing. If you want to get off, if you're ready to get off, it's literally a for sure thing. As far as I've read. Now, I mean, we're talking about over 80% success rates versus under 10% with rehab, with, you know, going through the 12-step program. I have a huge problem with the 12-step program because instead of that spirituality, you are trying to replace your drug addiction. You're trying to it's stupid. You're trying to get over your drug addiction by thinking about being a drug addict every day of your life. It's retarded. The fucking concept has failed. Now, interestingly as fuck, I'm going to edit this into the video earlier too if you didn't make it this long. Interestingly, though, Bill W., I don't know what his last name is. Everyone refers to him as Bill W. in Rehab. Bill W., though, the guy who started the Alcoholics Anonymous program, basically the first addiction treatment ever, his first suggestion, though, when he came to the medical board or whoever he presented this to, his first suggestion was hallucinogens. He was using, I think he was using mushrooms or acid or something. In that mixed with high doses of niacin, nicotinic acid, not niacinamide, but nicotinic acid. Niacinamide is synthetic niacin. Niacin for the depression that comes from, drug addiction, so it'll fix that. But then with a hallucinogen, which is a fucking deeply spiritual, process. He said his first suggestion was that, that he was having these hugely successful trials with these things. Now the medical establishment said, no, we can't do that. We can't treat drugs with drugs. We can't be condoning these things, blah, blah, blah. So the second option, though, was also a spiritual option, was going through the program. In the 12-step program, I'm not sure which one of the steps. I think it's like the first one maybe, or second or third, I don't know. But it's getting a connection with God. So basically, a connection with your own spirit. If you understand God, I make videos about this. You can check them out. If you understand God, though, and true spirituality, God is it's just connecting with the God inside yourself. They say God is in all of us. That's what they're talking about. But yeah, I'm ranting at this point, so I'll close the video out. And if I think of anything else, I'll make another. But yeah. Look up Ibogaine. Please look up Ibogaine. Thank you.